So the first thing we're going to do here today with our parents and guests is talk a little bit about the academic experience here at St. Thomas. And to get us started, it's my pleasure to introduce the Dean of our College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Yohuru Williams. So please welcome Dr. Williams to the stage.
Thanks. How's everybody doing today? Try that again. How's everybody doing today? It's a little bit better like church. It's my distinct pleasure to talk to you this morning about academic excellence, and I'm really the warm-up for my Associate Dean, Lisa Waldner, who'll do a deep dive with you about the range of academic interventions and opportunities that are available for your students at the University of St. Thomas. But I am happy because I really get to talk to you about the broad range of opportunities for your students really to explore and discover themselves in a context that allows them to really reimagine what it means to be a college student in the 21st century. And I say that to you because we are really facing a time when, unlike when most of us graduated from university, the durability of careers is not what it used to be. I remember coming out and thinking that I wanted to go into education, and I know what that looked like. I remember my friends who went in and went into fields like accounting and pre-law, and they had a pretty good idea about what their future would look like. But we now know, statistics tell us, that most of our young people are training for careers that don't exist at present. And they're really going to have to be flexible, adaptable, and think about themselves and think about work in a very different way. A liberal arts education should still prepare students to do that. And that's why the focal point that I'll share with you this morning is on encounters. And I say that because in a lot of ways, when we say that your students are going to take away a great education, we understand that that's going to require four things. Number one, it's going to require tenacity. That's that T. They've already demonstrated that because that's why they're here. They worked hard in high school. They got great test scores. Ultimately, they were able to distinguish themselves. They engaged in a range of academic activities, and now they're here. But tenacity is the first step. What they really are going to have to learn now, what they're going to have to develop is a sense of adaptability. They're going to really have to understand that in a larger sense, a good liberal arts education prepares you to be adaptable, to understand that there are going to be challenges, there are going to be changes, and you have to have confidence in the foundations that you acquire here that are going to put you in the best position to succeed in the future. If you're adaptable, what you're really then able to develop is a sense of knowledge. That adaptability leads you to believe that it's not just your courses in your major, it's not just your business classes, not just the engineering classes that are going to make you a valuable employee, that are going to prepare you to be life ready. It's going to be those foundation classes and those courses that you didn't know you need, but eventually you discover at some point when it's like accounting for me. I never knew I was going to be managing a budget, so it's a very good thing that I paid attention. So it's in those areas where you're getting that liberal arts foundation that you didn't necessarily know you would need that ultimately will put you in the best position to succeed in the future. If they can do that, if they can display tenacity, if they can be adaptable, if they can build that knowledge base, what they can effectively do is envision a future in which they will be successful. And part of the prospect of a University of St. Thomas education, besides our mission statement, is this process of envisioning, of really going through what we like to call a process of discernment. Because again, it's not just about the major, it's about what you'll minor in. It's about the academic encounters, it's about the experiences that you take away from the space that ultimately will prepare you in the best sense to be ready for whatever life throws at you. And that'll be more than what happens on your job. So it's a great education in that sense, and it's an education in some sense that's rooted in our mission statement to educate students to be morally responsible leaders who think critically, act wisely, and work skillfully to advance the common good. We don't simply take that as rhetoric. In fact, some of the academic experiences that I'm going to talk about with you today are rooted in this idea. As my colleague Don Weinkauf, Dean of Engineering, says that we want engineers who aren't concerned about just building structures cheaply and quickly, but who are concerned about the ethical foundations of what it means to build sustainable communities. I'm going to talk about my colleagues in justice and peace studies and environmental studies, people like Professor Paul Laura here, who privilege conversations with students about what it means to really think about what sustainability represents for the future of our country, for communities. And those are important conversations that are rooted in our mission statement, and we privilege that in a way that we help to train students to think about the future. Having said that, we also engage very deeply with employers, and we know that what employers tell us they want are students who demonstrate a broad knowledge. Now that's important because that again is about the liberal arts foundation. It's not just about preparation for a career. They want students who can engage in analytical and problem-solving activities, who have a strong ethical compass. We do not want our students winding up on the front page of the New York Times in some financial scandal that come out of our business school, because that would be a violation of our ethics. So we want to make sure that that's baked in to what they're learning in the classroom. They want creative and strategic thinkers, people who can work in teams but display leadership, people who are flexible and adaptable, who have a strong intercultural knowledge. At no point in our history have we ever been in a situation like today where we're really talking about global economy, global communities, and it's going to be important for our students, for our young people to be able to demonstrate cultural competence in order to be successful. They have to develop strong communication skills, and they have to have the ability to locate and access information. Now, I just came back from New York City yesterday where I was talking to 600 New York City public school teachers about their new curriculum on civics education, and part of that conversation was rooted in this idea that it's not just about the ability to access information, because if you're getting that information from Wikipedia, you're probably in trouble. It's the quality of the information. It's the ability to discern, to sift through, to sort out, to determine what's important, what's substantial, and what is not. That's the differentiator. And how to use or deploy that information in those problem-solving activities that's going to provide distinction for our young people. That's what we train them to do. Having said that, part of the academic encounters here are rooted in this broad knowledge, in this wedding between broad knowledge and disciplinary expertise. That's why we privilege in the liberal arts, in our curriculum encounters, things like faith in the Catholic tradition, historical studies, human diversity, fine arts, moral and philosophical reasoning, of course the bedrocks of literature and writing, natural science and mathematical and quantitative reasoning, social analysis, and most importantly, language and culture. And you'll find that expressed throughout our majors. So a business student, for example, has the opportunity to go through our Rome and Power program as a sophomore, first semester sophomore. Why did we start a first semester sophomore study abroad program? Because we recognize that the earlier students are exposed to study abroad experiences, the quicker you can destabilize them and get them to see that global world, the more likely they are to think about the importance of developing language and culture as an asset in the way they're thinking about how they'll interplay in a global economy. We do this with education because the reality is, if our young people want to go on to be teachers and school administrators, work in public schools or in private and parochial schools, they need intercultural knowledge to be able to deal with diverse populations who populate those schools. It's a very different way of thinking about education and value proposition. So in engineering, humanities, science, social work, you find integrated into that broad knowledge. We do this in a variety or through a variety of opportunities. You'll find that a vast majority of St. Thomas students, both in the sciences and the humanities and in the social sciences, engage in undergraduate research opportunities. We do things like the CAS teach-ins because we want to create authentic touches with our students that allow us to deal in real time with contemporary issues which impact them. The university is the place where critical conversations about economic inequality, about race, about gender, about politics should happen in a context that fosters civility. The ability for people to hear, to understand, and to respond to people whom they disagree with. And we need to develop that just as a country, as a world. So we need to do that work. We do that work here. We have Timey Media, which gives students the opportunity to engage in real-world opportunity. We have great initiatives in the College of Arts and Sciences like Solve, where we really felt that we needed to authentically partner the university with the community. I got to tell you about my favorite Solve project. It was brought to us by a gentleman by the name of Brett Brunix, who teaches in health and human performance. Now, the whole point of Solve was for us not to go into the community and pretend we have all the answers, but to ask community partners to come to us and present challenges they had so we could work on them. The YWCA of St. Paul came to us and said, we have a large geriatric population, and one of the biggest challenges that we face with them is maintaining healthy lifestyles, understanding the importance of exercise. Professor Brunix was working on slip and fall. And what he said was, and this is very important, when older Americans have slip and fall incidents, it's not the mobility, it's not the motor skills they can't recover. Your body doesn't forget that. The biggest impediment to recovery tends to be those things that are social, not having a network or family close to help work you through that, not having a philosophical or moral, you guys follow me here? And so Brett said, it's got to be more than me going in as a health and human performance or exercise science faculty member and talking about how to, move the body and what exercise. It's got to involve a marriage between American culture and difference. It's got to involve philosophy. It's got to involve theology. We have to think about cure personalis, the whole person, in the way that we engage with these types of injuries. That is the work that we're involving our students in. He has a team of students working with him with the YWCA in St. Paul. When they held their first event back in December, I got a letter from the head of the YWCA, Gay Adams Massey, who said more than 300 people turned out to be a part of this. That's how we're creating authentic opportunities for our students to work with faculty on real-world community issues. I say all of that to you today because when we talk about Ashoka Changemaker Campus or Solve or Center for the Common Good or Brightside or any number of initiatives that students can get involved in, when we talk about the Senior Design Clinic for Engineering, when we talk about the Fowler Business Challenge, they're all about creating authentic things that students can talk about on a resume that differentiate them from those who can simply say, I earned a degree in this. This is what I did. This is who I met. This is what it looks like. We also need to emphasize to you, and you already know this, and Lisa Waldner will talk about this in much more detail than I, our students need to know that sometimes it's going to be hard. Sometimes it's going to be really hard. And here's where we do work together. You are our critical care partners in helping build students who are resilient, optimistic, leaders who are engaged. So if you're ever having any doubt about what your role is, I'll say it again, to encourage them to be resilient, optimistic leaders who are engaged, who are thinking constructively about what their opportunities are. That hardness, in some sense, those difficulties, those challenges, are what helps them grow as individuals. In fact, we like to say that we want to invest, and we need you to help our young people invest, in durable excellence rather than fragile perfectionism. This isn't like the SAT or the ACT. It's not about a magical score that somehow determines how smart you are or how engaged you are. This is really about understanding that in order to grow, you got to make mistakes. You got to be vulnerable. You got to experiment. You have to go through a process of discernment. And we hope that in creating an opportunity for our students to safely fail and experiment, we grow young people who take away that education that prepares them truly for the 21st century market. I had a great time with you. I got my steps in, and it's now my pleasure to introduce to you my Associate Dean, Dr. Lisa Waldner, who talked to you more about academic interventions and other things pertinent to the experience of your young people. I'll see you guys at the social later today. Thank you.